What's up, guys? It's Ben with 2020 election predictions, and today I'm going to look at this article that was written in The Hill about two days ago that I think pretty well um, demonstrates the five things that would have to happen that could lead to a Trump victory. Right now, I think it's pretty obvious that Trump is the underdog. This wasn't the case about I would say maybe 4 months ago in February before the coronavirus hit. But most models have Trump losing. This is a model that I've referred to pretty closely, and right now it has Donald Trump at a 17% chance of winning. And this is actually a worse place than he was in 2016, which surprises a lot of people. So, okay, before I get too far into my video, I just wanted to remind you all to please subscribe right now. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by July 17th, which is just in about 5 days. So please help me get there. Okay, so this is where I characterize the 2020 presidential race between Joe Biden and Donald Trump to be right now. And this pretty much mimics this model, except in some states, I think I actually favor Donald Trump a little bit more. And this isn't to say that I'm biased. I just think that right now, Donald Trump is at one of his low points, and I think that he is going to improve a little bit come election day. I do agree that if the election were held this Tuesday, that this model would probably better represent the state of the race than this model, just because I think Donald Trump has been shooting himself in the foot recently, and Joe Biden hasn't really been tested. He's released a lot of videos that have been edited. He can do multiple takes. I think this style of campaigning, the coronavirus has actually helped Joe Biden a lot. So I think if the coronavirus starts to die down and once the debates happen, I do think this will help Donald Trump. But let me just look at the discrepancies between my model and the thing right now. So the only state that's different right now is the state of North Carolina. I have this as a tilt towards the Republicans' characterization, while this model has it, I'd probably say a tilt or maybe even a lean towards the Democrats. And then some other discrepancies in this model. I have Florida, Arizona, and Wisconsin all tilting towards the Democrats. If we take this model at face value, I think anything above 65% would be probably a lean characterization, and these are all like even close to the 70s, 75%. So these would probably all be lean, and I think Michigan would even be probably a likely, because if it's under 10%, I would definitely consider it a likely for Donald Trump, and probably Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and Nevada. So the reason why I have these classifications right now is, again, I think that Donald Trump is going to improve right now. He is in a low point. So let's look at the 5 different scenarios that could lead to a Trump victory. I actually completely agree with this article. It is written by Liz Peek, who is probably definitely more favorable to Trump. She's probably going to vote for Trump in 2020. So she's hoping that these things are going to happen. But I think whether you're Democrat or Republican, that you can actually agree with these 5 steps that would really help Donald Trump, and that could scare Joe Biden. And there's plenty of other scenarios, like if we continue on the current trajectory that we're on right now, that would definitely help Joe Biden, because Joe Biden is doing very, very well right now. So number one, if there's backlash forms against the growing violence and intolerance of the left, and Democratic leaders remain mum. So this is definitely an opinion. Probably people on the left would not say that they're growing violent or intolerant, but I think we have seen with some of these riots and some of these violent protests where they're tearing down statues. I think a lot of moderate Democrats would rather these statues be taken down in a more civil way, with like the city council voting on them, and maybe moving them to a museum instead of destroying them completely. And if you look at public opinion polls, people don't want statues of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Abraham Lincoln, even like Frederick Douglass, or General Ulysses S. Grant, who fought for the side of the Union in the Civil War. No one wants to see those model statues coming down, and it is definitely a small group on kind of the more fringe left who are doing these things, and it doesn't represent Joe Biden necessarily. He says he still wants to keep statues of George Washington and other founding fathers up, which I think is very smart view to take on this for Joe Biden, because this is definitely a fringe group of the Democratic Party, and I think if Joe Biden remains moderate and can stand for these issues that maybe someone kind of the far left don't agree with, and I think he will win the 2020 election. However, if Joe Biden, who is a Democratic leaders, remains mum, and there's more violence and more intolerance, as the author says, then I definitely think this could help Donald Trump. Next would be the coronavirus continues to become less dangerous. This is something that is not in Donald Trump's control, really. I guess he can increase funding for like a vaccine or something, but this is something that really is out of Donald Trump's or Joe Biden's hands. I kind of think it's unlikely that the coronavirus is going to be reduced dramatically. I do think it could help some, and I do think that the economy, this is like number 3, that the economy could accelerate right at the exact time that would help Donald Trump's re-election. However, this is something that Donald Trump really can't count on, and I think he can introduce stimulus bills that would help if he just hands checks to low-income people, especially who are struggling the most. I think this could help. But I would say that like number 1 is probably more likely than number 2. And I think number 3, kind of the reopening of the economy, Donald Trump can facilitate and accelerate this, but he can't force it. If the coronavirus is still a threat, he can't reopen the economy. And if he does, it could actually backfire on him. And we've seen that in some states like Texas and Georgia and Florida. Next would be Biden begins to campaign in earnest and fails to excite the party. I think this is fairly plausible. I think one thing that Republicans have already started to do, I saw like Donald Trump Jr. has been tweeting a lot about this, kind of putting pressure on the Biden campaign to come out of the basement and start to campaign. Donald Trump wants to have more than 3 debates, which like obviously the Biden campaign isn't going to agree with. And I think it kind of looks bad for Trump that at first he didn't want any debates and now he wants more than 3. It kind of shows he's a little bit desperate. But this is what Republicans and Trump campaign staffers had said all along. They want Joe Biden to campaign more, which is a little bit ironic. This really doesn't happen, but I think what they think with this is that when Joe Biden is in the public more, he's going to make more gaffes and make more mistakes. And it's probably the same strategy that the Democrats went with Trump, because I think when Trump is the story, it hurts him, especially with this Twitter and stuff. And the last thing that I think is the most important thing is that Trump becomes more disciplined and focused on election. If this doesn't happen, Trump is going to lose, and it's going to be his fault alone. I was hearing Republicans saying that when he gave his speech in front of Mount Rushmore and in his July 4th speech, they really liked that speech, and they thought that speeches like those would help Donald Trump win re-election. So that was on Friday and Saturday, but then that Monday, he tweeted at Bubba Wallace, like saying that he should apologize to NASCAR and that saying that he disagreed with the flag decision, which was when the NASCAR decided not to have Confederate flags be allowed to be flown at NASCAR races. And I mean, I think this kind of distracts from what like Trump campaign advisors and people within the White House want Trump to focus on. So Trump is kind of shooting himself in the foot. I think this is the most important, but I mean, I frankly don't right now, I don't think that Trump will be able to contain himself and become more disciplined. I mean, he's had 3.5 years to do this, and I don't want to insert my opinion too much into this. But I think that he's failed to be a very disciplined, focused president, and that I think that if he has a sterling 4 months and can make this contrast against Joe Biden, and if Joe Biden is like floundering himself, I do think that Donald Trump could win. So let's look at some different scenarios. So what is the easiest path of victory to Donald Trump? So these tilt states, the tilt consideration is that I think Joe Biden's going to win these states under 2 points, and the lean characterization is that he's going to Joe Biden's going to win these states by 2 to 5 percentage points. So we can really easily just flip these tilt states to the Republicans, because I mean that would only require a 2 percentage point swing at the very most. And so this is Donald Trump's easiest path to victory. I predicted this as a likely outcome earlier before the coronavirus hit, but right now I don't think this is as likely. So let's look at the presidential forecast manipulator to see like what this would look like. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on North Carolina is going to go red. Florida's going to go red, Arizona's going to go red, and Wisconsin is going to go red. So this simulation happens 12% of the time. So it's not completely out of the stretch. And if he wins all these states, then he's going to have 100% chance of winning. I mean, if we consider Iowa and Ohio and Texas, then I think we get up to 99.8. So this is 270 electoral votes. And with the Supreme Court's decision that there can't be any faithless electors, this would hand the presidency to Donald Trump, albeit very narrowly. If Donald Trump does these 5 steps and more, I mean, obviously the sky's the limit. I mean, he could win Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Minnesota. But this is Donald Trump's most likely path to victory right now. So I really hope you all have enjoyed this video. Please subscribe here if you haven't already, and I'll see you tomorrow.